Hello everyone and welcome to a Real Politik election special. This is the latest in our series, The Road to Number 10, in which we'll be looking at all the top contenders in the race for number 10. So, today I am joined by one of the top journalists in the land. This is somebody who's reporting on the goings-on in the key battleground state of Ilford South. Has been some of the most insightful journalism over the last few years and has provided an awful lot of information on the real seat of power in this country. I'll also be joined later on for some politically incorrect comedy by my close friend from whom I would like to distance myself, Faraj's fucked face, but he is running late because the show is apparently not some kind of priority to him, so we'll maybe have him on later, I don't know. At the end of the day, who gives a shit? But my guest today is Ilford South investigative journalist extraordinaire, Jimothy Baker.
Hello, and thank you for having me on, chat. I will immediately apologise. Might have to go at any point because I do have diarrhea, and so I'm naturally squatting above an intern's desk. You got to show who's boss. But yeah, you said FF is going to be on this podcast. I've never heard of him, and you keep promising we're going to be on the same episode, but honestly, he sounds like just a massive cunt, possibly a so I'm glad I don't have to talk to him. He probably sounds also like a guy doing a northern accent because he can't do a London accent.
Well, a journalist wouldn't lie, would they? So I have to take your
we're
word
fellow
at
journalists.
These are very serious allegations that you're making, but I assume that you have a strong basis from which to say them.
We are journalists. We know we don't have to make strong cases for what we say. We just say it, and if they go to court, we fuck them with lawfare. They don't have any fucking money. We have all the fucking money. It's a really good system, actually.
We're currently in the throes of a general election. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah, I know you're having your quote-unquote election now, and it's weird. It's not like a sort of Ilford election. It's like you let the baying rabble of scum pick who gets to lead you. I know you have MPs, as Mike Gapes explained to me. In your part of the world, you're having an election where you elect minor politicians. That's what your MPs are. Here in Ilford South, Gapes MP, well, it stands for major politician. Some people might say it stands for North Coven Premier. It was actually this really annoying alternative comic who came and said, "Oh, it stands for missing persons." The sort. He comes on stage, he deconstructs comedy.
I'm familiar with some missing persons, many of them from Ilford.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So I suppose, I know the sort.
But yeah, that's not a funny joke for a lot of missing people in Ilford. You don't make jokes about that, unless you're one of these sort of dickheads who, comes on stage, they shit on plates. They say, Mike Gapes, he's behind the missing people. So yeah, we got these alternative comedians, they come on here, they think that the idea of a joke is they shit on plates. And they say, "Oh, Mike Gapes MP, that must stand for missing person." And you know what? He actually turned up to be a missing person a bit later on. Obviously, I would have used my intellectual, investigative mind to find out what happened to him. But when I was in the audience, he made fun of my mustache. I was trying to grow a mustache. It obviously wasn't working. He zoomed in on that. And you know what? I'm fucking glad he's dead now. Fuck him.
So yeah, in Ilford, the MP is a figure who is very much revered, sort of like the cow is in Ilford South as well. And, the MP obviously lives in the palatial MP's manor.
Well, yeah, it's like the Temple of Jerusalem.
Very much like I've heard, and much like the nation-state of which Jerusalem is a part, I understand that the MP's manor keeps expanding beyond its originally outlined premises.
Well, yes, I mean, some people would call it a cancer on Ilford South, but it's not a
But
cancer because,
that seems offensive to the cancer epidemic in Ilford South. There's
well,
many
yes, but
victims.
cancer epidemic that can be solved. We can't solve the problem of Kaunadu constantly expanding. It's just what you live with in Ilford South. In fact, recently it got so big, like it started pushing against my window of my house. You know, my lovely £100,000 house, and my house started tipping over because it just kept expanding. So that's why I'm now living in the office.
What are the offices of the Ilford Inquirer like as accommodation?
They're not too bad. I mean, because I am the editor, you know, I have a lovely bed. I have a lovely, it's basically like two-story house in there.
In the offices?
Well, yeah. Well, you're so lazy you don't go to work and sleep at your workplace.
Well, yeah, I suppose I don't adhere to the grind set mind set as much as many of my generation do.
Well, yeah, that's why
Are
you're
you
all
into that
lazy.
kind of
Like,
stuff?
well,
Yeah,
the interns
wow,
are.
okay. That would,
The
you know
interns
what?
are. Through choice without.
When some when someone resorts to ad hominems, that just shows that they're losing the argument.
Defecation ad hominem. I just pointed out that you are not as successful as me, the editor of the Ilford Inquirer. No, I earn upwards of £20,000 a year.
You specifically, you went below the belt. You cast aspersions about my personal life, and then said something I didn't quite catch about interns.
I was just saying, if you want to be successful, all you need is a really successful father. He gives you his job when he dies under unexplained circumstances. We don't look into it very much.
Was he married to Johnny Polio?
No, no. He's a very straight man. He used to make me watch as he fucks all the young interns, all his mistresses. That's how I actually learned about the ways of the world. He'd just be like making me sit in a chair in the corner, and he'd fuck all these women and just look at me whilst he was doing it and saying, "You'll never be me."
And is it true that he once took you to Mike Gapes's private manga library as a young man?
Yes, briefly. He did, but I was only allowed into the child section. That's where they had other works by Waiter Usiga. Things like My Chan's Daily Life, Cockroach, all the basically vanilla stuff. I wasn't allowed into the adult part. Apparently, that's where all the real stuff goes on.
Apparently, there were multiple adults in there in states of severe distress.
Well, yeah, that's like all of Ilford. If you go to any part of Ilford, there'll be many adults in severe distress.
The dental office, the chiropodists. Is Dr. Hugo still working?
He's not working, no. He had to leave quickly. He's now in Argentina, I believe.
Are you sure that isn't a cover story? Because I've
What's
heard
there to cover?
audio documentation.
What is there to cover?
th-
He was a
the
fantastic
recording that I heard of Dr. Hugo Hostenfeather,
That
the
sounds like
Ilford South chiropodist, being stabbed to death by somebody who sounded specifically Mike Gapes, and his body then
that's
promptly discovered by your good self.
that sounds like misinformation to me. Gapes has assured me he is perfectly fine and he's gone to live with his family in Argentina, all white. We don't ask why
The
they're all white
Rainbow
in
Bridge
Argentina.
in Argentina. Well, maybe in that part, in that compound, they all are. Well, yeah, okay, I understand. Perhaps that audio was AI deepfake misinformation. I understand that's happening a lot. In fact, the political enemies of the current national Labour leader, not different, of course, from the Ilford South Labour leader, but we can get into that. Sir Keir Starmer, currently his many enemies, poor people, trans, woke, um, black people, Muslims, and other racists. His many enemies have now developed the deepfake technology to such frightening extremes that they are not simply manufacturing audio and video of Starmer, but in
Well,
person appearances in front of live audiences.
Well, you say you're developing it. I mean, it's all sort of developed on the technology the long missing Richard Miller developed about 20 years ago. Or in some cases, people say he developed it in the 1950s after he was spirited away. But, like, obviously that's fake. How could Richard
Is that a
Miller?
Japanese thing? Spirited Away, that's one of the items in Mr. Gapes's manga library, is it not?
Yes, that was one of the ones I saw as a child. I saw that. I saw My Chance Daily Life. I
You
certainly got
you
an
did sneak into the adult
introduction.
section.
Oh no, this was still the children's section. My Chan's Daily Life, like, it's not that bad when you see it. It's simply about a 17-year-old immortal girl who gets and then she has a magical ability where she comes back to life, and the next day she gets tortured to death.
Well, that may not sound out of the ordinary to those of you in Ilford South, but that is a rather extreme scenario for those of us in the civilized world.
I'm sure it is, but you call it the civilized world. I mean, what is civilization, really? I mean, you let the brain scum choose your leaders. Whereas in Ilford South, we have Gapes. He's ordained by God. We know that. He tells it us himself constantly, like every fucking day. Gapes tells us, I have been ordained by God.
And do you believe him?
Well, how could someone ordained by God lie about that? Gapes was ordained by God. It goes from God to Gapes to Ilford South. That's simply how it works. But things like, you have your elections. That is so arrogant that you think you could pick a better person than Gapes, that you think your brain massive scum could pick someone. You can't. It goes from God to the master to, the brain massive scum. That's simply how it's done. I mean, we all need to learn from the humility of Mike Gapes, MP, the one who God loves the most, as he tells us all the time. And his humility, when God chose Gapes to lead Ilford South, that is simply what happens. And Gapes, known for his humility, known for his divine providence, known for possibly being the person who actually could replace God because he is so divine.
Well, that is the Mike Gapes that we all know and love. A minute ago, you referenced certain technological advances made by Mr. Gapes's long disappeared former aide, Mr. Richard Miller. What are these, and do these relate to this corpse found in a skip in Ilford South that had a very sort of square head and very rectangular head, a very severe haircut, and looked like he had a kind of incredibly annoying donkey with a peg on its nose kind of voice.
That's really
Yeah,
strange because, like, I'd often see Richard Miller in the company of people with that sort of square head, a bit of a quiff, absolutely dead behind the eyes, square chin, and like, I'd ask him, like, do you have any interest in it? No. Like, do you have any history? No. They all insisted they used to be like big lawyer. And yeah, I don't know what happened with those. I assume one of them has gone to greatness because Richard Miller was very proud of them. He'd always show them off. On leashes sometimes.
Mr. Miller was known for having a variety of what he called waifus, and he often used to proudly boast at Ilford South social engagements of how these rectangular headed men were serially unfaithful to their wives.
Well, yeah, I mean, he used to have like three of them on a leash. He'd removed their arms and legs. They were basically just sex toys at that point. But yes, he kept saying at one point, one of these is going to be Prime Minister. I don't understand what he meant by that. He'd just come in with these like weird sort of dogs. I say dogs, like I say, they were men, they had their arms removed, their legs removed, they were completely naked, they had stupid grey hair, they had weird square grey faces. But it was like, one of these days, Jimothy, one of these days, I'm gonna take control.
And none of these strange, identical men had any kind of discernible interests nor personality, did they? They all said that they
No,
were
no, it was like they were
scared
all
of.
no, it was like they were all born in a lab, but Richard Miller assured me they were all real men. They were all real men who sported arsenal and would never cheat on their wives and had strong ideological convictions.
I thought he was boasting about how they did cheat on their wives, or was that what he told? Mr. Miller
Oh,
was a brilliant political strategist, so he'd often play both sides. So he might tell the press one thing, and he might tell Gape's allies in the Ilford South underworld another.
well, yes, it was like, well, the ones I've castrated obviously have never cheated on their wives. How could they? But the ones I haven't castrated, God, they love to cheat on their wives. And that's why, he had to have them
And
all
they
chained. Well, apparently, like, one escaped at some point. Don't know what happened to him.
Well, apparently, when asked, these strange pod men, you could call them, not to be confused with podcasters, a fine and noble profession, they would say that they were scared of nothing as a child. But when you would press them on their childhood, they would only be able to give you a kind of series of stock answers that it was sort of the same thing every time. It would never go past a certain surface. It was always the profession of the mother and father. It was always the broken window, the smell of manure at the football pitch.
That's what all the people who Richard Miller had chained up would say. They'd just say, I'm not scared of anything, but you look in their eyes, it's completely dead. Like, they had no interests, no fear. They just knew they were there to be used.
Ilford South has always been both the cultural and economic heartland of the United Kingdom. In 2017, Mike Gapes gave his famous speech at that year's Gape Fest, which it later turned out was illegally paid for using official Labour Party funds earmarked for the election.
Well, look, you,
Um,
you don't get
that was
gapes for
outlined.
free. You want gapes, you pay for gapes. You wanted to do his speech, you pay for his speech.
That was outlined in a leaked Labour report that came out very shortly after the UK Labour Party leader Keir Starmer became leader. There are different national leaders in the UK, aren't there?
Well, I
There's
guess so.
what is
There's
it?
like
Yeah,
a
there's
Scottish one, a Welsh one, and an English one. They've got some sort of a king now, and then there's Mike Gapes.
the Ilford South Labour leader.
Yeah, you say the Ilford South Labour leader. It's basically just the Ilford South leader. We know from experience not to try to get rid of the Gapes. No, that doesn't go well.
Yeah, we've seen what happened to Sam Tarry. Has anyone heard from him lately?
I don't know who that guy is. It's he sounds like, but no, it's just Gapes. You live in Ilford South. It's a different world. You live in Gapes' world. Law is Gapes, okay? You have Gapes, you have his father Gapes, you have his grandfather Mike Gapes, all of them who seem to look exactly the same. We don't question it.
What about Frank Gapes, who was famously killed in the First World War?
Yeah, he was killed in the First World War, but that was actually before he actually got to the front line. Yeah, apparently, like, he just shot himself in the head and then repeatedly himself with machine guns.
Well, it makes a lot of sense that the family didn't bestow the honourable name of Mike upon him. He sounds like a bit of a lame duck.
Well, no, you have the heir, we always call Mike, and then you have the spares, and often they die in mysterious circumstances.
But let's return to Ilford culture. So Ilford has always had a thriving music scene.
Yeah,
Yet,
I mean, we play old music there. We played Rolling Stones, for Beatles. Well, that's basically the only two bands that matter. Yeah, like in Ilford South, we play all the music. We play the Beatles, we play the Rolling Stones, we play the Kinks, we play Johnny Polio, we play Johnny
real
AIDS.
music.
Exactly, real music. That's what the kids want to listen to, not like these
Charlie Cancer.
Charlie Cancer. Yeah, that was one of the 80s pop stars that came along through Ilford.
Well, Johnny Polio is especially popular in Ilford South, isn't he? Because he's actually a homegrown hero. And
He
that's not
is.
just
I
because
mean,
of the copious amounts of weed that he both grew and smoked.
well, yeah, he's a homegrown hero, and some would say a homegrown villain, especially the parents.
You've actually been the executive producer of and written the liner notes for the brand new 18 CD box set, Gone But Never Forgiven, the complete Johnny Polio. Now, I got a preview copy of this box set before we got together for this discussion, and I have to say, it's really incredible as a window into musical history. What did it take to research this comprehensive overview of the storied career of one of our greatest rock musicians?
Well,
Real musicians, you
it
could
did
say.
take £30,000 that I'm not getting back again. My wife said I shouldn't spend it all on, a child murderer, but he's part of Ilford South history. He's got classic songs like Groovy Sex or Psychedelic Funk, or his best song, I'm gonna you because you.
Is Psychedelic Funk a different song to his classic 7-inch from 1967, Psychedelic Fuck, which was
I
controversial at the time for being the first song on the British charts to contain the word psychedelic?
I've never seen his penis, but apparently Psychedelic Fuck 7-inch was the length of it.
And then later, I think Psychedelic Funk was released as the B-side to the re-release of Psychedelic Fuck when the song had a resurgence as a disco hit in the late 70s.
Well, yeah, people pretend like black people invented funk. They didn't. Johnny Polio invented it, but for obvious reasons, we have to rewrite history sometimes.
Ilford South's contributions continually written out of history by those who have colonized its culture.
Oh, what was that album he made after
Sorry.
his second wife died? I think she was like 10 at the time.
That album, yeah, that was Red Hot Tamales and T-Bone, I believe. And that was the album he made after his second wife died, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's basically called like Henry VIII of rock music just because so many of his wives died.
She was murdered, wasn't she?
Oh, well, that's what the coroner said. But how
Just
much?
like
How
his
much?
first wife.
Apparently so, but like, how much importance can you place on a coroner's report? He has
I
that
thought the
song.
coroner in Ilford South was a close friend of Mike Gapes, a pillar of Ilford South society.
Oh no, back to pen. We got rid of him. But he had that song. I did not murder any of my wives. You cannot prove it. I am legally innocent of any of the murders. It was a
That
banger
was
as
sort
well.
of the first diss track, wasn't it? Because he really took aim at the coroner, the judge, the jury, indeed the executioner really came in for it in his lyrics on that one.
Yeah, it was really vicious. I don't think any of them were actually paedophiles, compared to Johnny Polio. But no, he called all of them paedophiles.
Yeah, some might say that it was a little pot calling the kettle black.
Oh yeah, well, we didn't have black artists back then. You know, no, not until 1982
So
were black artists allowed to record in Ilford South.
I heard that for the comedy great Spike Milligan, Ilford South was something of a home away from home, and he insisted that his classic sitcoms Melting Pot and Curry and Chips be produced in Ilford South, and that they hire only local Ilford people, which is why, as you've just explained, everybody in the show was a white person putting on some kind of costume.
That's true. Actually, Spike Milligan used to get beaten up a lot in Ilford South just because he had makeup on, and we all thought he was.
Well, clearly, in spite of the repressive union legislation of the 1970s, the BBC were able to hire some talented people at the time. But then BBC Ilford South has always been a cut above national BBC.
It has, yeah. I mean, like BBC, they don't even play like.
Speaking of Johnny Polio, you could say that due to his controversial views on vaccines and the COVID-19 pandemic and the consequent resurfacing of his onstage racist diatribe in 1976, and then, of course, topping it off with his anti-Semitic opposition to the genocide of Palestinian people. You could say that the stock of Eric Clapton in the public imagination has really fallen. You know, an artist much like Mike Gapes, who was once compared to God. And I think that really the space in the culture that was once filled with Eric Clapton, you know, God, all that kind of stuff, slow hand, etc. Johnny Polio has
Well, yeah,
kind
he's
of
be Eric
had
Clapton,
a
Stuart.
resurgence
Yeah, he's be Eric
to fill
Clapton,
that
Stuart
gap.
Donaldson. We had so many good concerts from both of them there.
And while Clapton was called slow hands, Johnny Polio was quite the opposite. He was known for his quick hands,
Oh yeah, very quick hands.
frequently shaking, but speedy.
Yes, very quick hands. Like he could, and you wouldn't even know.
And Clapton and Polio have somewhat of a history themselves, don't they? Not in the way that Clapton's peer Neil Young has a history with polio and that he had the illness as a young man, but rather Clapton and Johnny were contemporaries on the scene back in the golden age of rock, weren't they?
Yes, I believe at
The
one point they
90s.
had the same wife and also the same.
In re-
It's what we call a polycule. Two guys, one wife. Goes up to the window. Who knows if it was pushed or not? We'll never know.
that inspired one of Johnny Polio's late era classics, didn't it?
It did, yes. We all know the lyrics to I Want to See Those White Panties.
And the lyric in the chorus of that song, I Hate Bush, I would pinpoint as leading to the start of the late career renaissance and comeback of Johnny Polio. Of course, maybe that's putting it uncharitable because, of course, he disappeared many years ago. So he's not really able to enjoy the fruits of his resurgence
Oh, but
in
no,
the
I've
public and
just
critical
recently
imagination.
become popular on TikTok.
So I've heard. But of course, the lyric I Hate Bush was not interpreted by a mass of young
Oh,
Americans in the early 2000s
oh
in
no.
the way that its author had originally
At the,
intended.
at the time, it was not a political statement. It was just him stating that he hated Bush and he preferred girls before they developed pubic hair.
But then it was reclaimed by the left as an anthem against the invasion of Iraq in 2003, which of course led to the song becoming the only Johnny Polio song to be banned in Ilford South by the MP Mike Gapes.
It's true, and it's not Johnny Polio's fault, you know. He had many faults as a human being, but supporting the Iraq War was not one of them.
Because he was dead, right? I mean, he would have probably done if he was alive.
Officially dead, yes.
Officially dead. So you feel that maybe Johnny Polio was actually somewhere in 2003 watching the Big Blair speech on his television, maybe, you know, by his pool in Spain and saying, "Good on you, my son. Good on you."
You can never kill someone as evil as Johnny Polio. That sort of evil lives with you forever, whether in Ilford South or the Iraq War.
So, in the 2019 general election, we were informed that Mike Gapes lost his seat as an MP, that he ran as an independent candidate and got, I believe, around 5% of the vote. Now, can you explain how, in spite of that, Mr. Gapes continues to be a figure of considerable power and influence in Ilford South?
Well, yeah, have you ever seen those documentaries about how the moon landing was faked? It's all faked. No, there was actually an election in 2019. Mike Gapes was returned to Ilford South with a vote return of 100%.
And you do not remember the name of the person who it is claimed outside of Ilford South media won the seat of Ilford South in the 2019 general election.
Why would I remember that? It didn't happen. In 2019, Gapes won with 100% of the vote. No one stood against him.
Is it true that Mr. Gapes has placed £1 million bet on the outcome of the general election?
Well, yeah, Mike Gapes loves to bet because one of the things about betting is you can bet in a good way. You have to remember, for Gapes, this is mere pence for him. He just loves the thrill. He loves the thrill of gambling. That exquisite feeling of knowing he could lose £1 million in a night and it would mean nothing to him. But for anyone else, imagine losing £1 million. Imagine losing all your life savings. No, Gabe just loves that. He just loves the idea that he can put on £1 million bet. That exquisite feeling of knowing you could lose £1 million, 10 million, £100 million on a roll of a dice, and it would ruin you for life. But for Gabe's, that's just, chump change. Part of it is knowing you're the winner. Whether you win or lose, you know you've proved to someone else that you have money.
So it's not that he's privy to insider information on the predetermined outcomes of elections, then?
Oh no, that would be boring. Why would you bet on something you know is going to win? No, when Gapes bets, he bets on weird things like when I'd get divorced. He actually got that one right. Yeah, we don't
Oh,
talk
who could
about
have thought?
that.
Who could have seen that coming? Perhaps some of your interns.
Well, he also bets on like how many of the interns are going to turn up dead. He always gets those right as well. I don't know how he does it.
Oh,
Such a
maybe
good
Johnny
gambler.
Polio is alive after all.
No, I went and dug up his grave the other day. He's definitely dead. I made sure of it. I punched his skull until it was dust.
I thought you were a fan.
Yeah, I'm a fan. That's what a fan of his would want him to do. Dig him up, punch his grave until it was dust. It's basically like G.G. Allen, but, even worse.
But Mr. Gapes does do this at every general election.
Who are you referring to this? I mean, I'm assuming you're referring to the worldwide Ilford South Family Fun Festival.
Is that where all the families of the victims get together and punch the decaying corpse of Johnny Polio
Well,
every year?
yes, that's one of the attractions, but there's also face painting, there's bear baiting, there's stuff with the kids, and also we get all the young women to host the games. And after 10:30, 11, when it gets dark, well, then there's stuff for dad.
And that's not for young women.
Oh no, when I say young women, I mean we go to all the local. We pick them up. We find the ones who, or have. We bring them out. They do the shows at the family festival, and then
Jesus, you
no,
really
no,
are a Johnny Polio fan.
no. This is all after 10. We've done all the game shows and stuff, and if there's anyone you take a fancy to, that's Daddy's time. I mean, I will say, like, you do need to turn up with a bit of cash because we don't have card readers here.
Was that Gapes Gold or Great British Pounds?
Well, we've got the exchange rate. It's £1 to 100 Gapes gold, or sometimes vice versa. You never know. It's a very changeable.
For
It's
luck
a
of the
very
draw. Well,
change.
Gapes is a gambler, isn't he? As you said.
Exactly, yeah. It's a very changeable currency. But don't think I didn't see you last year, Jack. After coming here at 10:30, I saw you going up for girls. You were trying to like negotiate with them. You were trying to haggle with them like. No, you come to me or one of the gate goons. We'll sort you out.
I
That was
had
one.
heard that they had some good milk. I was told that that was where to go if you wanted some good milk, and I wanted the best fucking milk.
Next time you come to me, I'll give you journalist rates, but don't try that again, Jack. People are pretty angry about you last year. You kept going up to all the young girls and saying, "Can we, go somewhere, negotiate, haggle a bit?" It's like, no, it doesn't work like that, Jack. You come to Daddy.
Why did you keep telling me that they had milk then?
Well, you get milk out of them, they get milk out of you. It's a fun
You
time.
you created a complete a total confusion in that scenario. It was just so much trouble could have been saved for everyone involved.
Well, no, I mean, you said you were a journalist. I assume you knew how it goes. No, you're a journalist. Some young interns or women are there. And, and then you come to me, and I sort you out. That's how it goes.
Are Ilford South livestock still falling victim to the mysterious apparition known as the golf course ogre?
They are, yes, but thing is, like, the golf course is the best place to raise cows.
Yeah, what
because you need.
it has always been. Have always thought that about the golf course ogre. Like, why were the cows on the golf course in the first place? I did make me wonder, but I suppose there's a lot of cow
Well,
overspill in Ilford
well, no,
South.
like,
It's very populous in cow terms relative to the size of area.
well, yeah, you can either pay teenagers to come and cut all the grass, so that's the point of golf usefulness, or the female teenagers can come and work for me as interns, and so
What's that
you
got
know,
to do with cows and the golf course ogre?
because you need grass really nice and short, and all the teenagers they're busy, so you get the cows to come in and eat the grass.
And they keep dying.
Like too often, maybe once a month when we go hunting for them, and we find they're all dead.
I've heard that you and Mr. Gapes are still trying to get to the bottom of it after all these
We
years.
will, we will get to the bottom of it one of these weeks, Jack. I promise.
But every time you go there to investigate, more cows seem to die.
Well, yes, because we go there to investigate when the golf course ogre is on one of its sprees.
Yeah, okay. It's not that the golf course ogre is on one of his sprees when you go there to investigate.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I suppose that is just the same sentence, but with the order of the components flipped around. Okay, well, let's ask you the big question, because I feel it's important to hold. You, as a journalist, know better than anyone else about holding power to account. And I
Mm.
forgot the phrase. Like, see, I'm not really a journalist in the same way you are, so I don't find it particularly important holding power to account. But all of us know better than anyone that it's important to hold the powerful to account. And you are
Exactly. Yes,
here
that's part
as
of our. Yeah, that's exactly why I do this.
an official not just as a journalist and courageous, independent, investigative reporter, but also as an official representative of the Mike Gapes campaign in Ilford South. So you are here as the official representative of Gapes, who, as we've established, is on this earth as the official representative of God. So
Mm.
ergo, I believe that you, in this case, represent the powerful. So, I believe it's important to ask the big questions. So, Jimothy, can you speak on behalf of the Ilford South government and leadership? When I ask you, the Labour Shadow Cabinet Minister John Ashworth recently stated that a Labour government will strike a deal with the Taliban to deport refugees fleeing their rule back to Afghanistan, where they can be politically persecuted. Now, has Mr. Gapes made, or will he be making, any kind of deal with the Taliban?
Well, as you know, like everyone in Ilford South has to be a white straight male, and that's why they all sound like me or you.
What about Gorgeous Georgie? How do you fit him into there? He might be white, but I wouldn't call that man straight, nor indeed his partner, Gorgeous Gilbert.
Well, yeah, you can have two of them.
Sorry, I think I
Sorry,
lost you there.
I
I think I
say
had
like
you on the ropes so bad. You didn't know what the fuck to say. This is truth to power, baby. Got him on the ropes like a game of wrestling.
a game of wrestling. Fucking hell.
Yeah, I knew you'd like that. Come on, what's the Gape's line on Taliban? Give it to me straight.
Gabe Silent Taliban is yes, women need to be covered up, but you also don't really have that problem in Ilford South because there are no women. What's Gabe's position on Taliban? You can't just hit me with that and expect me to immediately come up with shit.
What, do you need 10 days like Sakir Starmer? Good 10-day grace period to get your response together to a question. Do you condemn Jeremy Corbyn? Just as his great Labour moderate forefather and noted Welsh person Owen Smith once said he would do with ISIS, could you see Mr. Gapes getting the Taliban round the table?
Well, yeah, if it's a big enough table, yeah, of course you can. I don't know what happened around that table, but yeah, you get Gabe's big table. We order some curry. Fantastic night.
Curry and chips, even.
Yeah, we had to ban that from Ilford South because it wasn't racist enough.
The TV show or the two foods together?
Both curry and
I,
chips have been banned from Ilford South because we looked at them and thought,
I
this
suppose
is
you
a
combine curry and chips. You're combining that foreign muck with our great British food, the chip.
we just need to drink milk in Ilford South. There was that terrible film, Milk, about some sort of gay that came out, and no, that's not our sort of
Like
thing.
a gay person would come out.
Yes, it was Harvey Milk. Just the real damage to the world. Milk, Harvey Milk did.
And I mentioned earlier how it surfaced in a recent leaked report that official Labour Party funds had been diverted during the 2017 election to pay for a vanity festival for Mike Gapes in Ilford South, at which hundreds of people ultimately died. Now, that money was expropriated from Labour's elections war chest. Now, is it true Mr. Gapes often likes to talk about his own war chest?
He does, yeah. I've seen him before, like 6 beautiful nipples, all of them expressing milk. Whether he likes it or not, they express themselves. I have been in a male sauna with him before. It's basically like the scene in Eastern Promises, especially because he killed 2 people there.
I've been getting many calls, many tips from listeners in North Durham who've been saying, this is very odd. I understood that Gapeses were a purely Ilford South phenomenon, but we appear to have one just roaming around the streets of North Durham. Well, not really roaming, sort of hobbling, but,
I've heard of
you
that,
know,
yes. Well, it's not for real Luke Akehurst, because as we all know, Luke Akehurst was fired into the sun in a giant rocket 10 years ago. And in 100 years, he will come back and he will cleanse the earth. And he's coming back and he's going to destroy all the world in a fucking fiery hatred of nuclear war and hatred.
when he will destroy all the unworthy in a blaze of radiation and hate.
Yeah, that was a good line. You got the fake Luke Akehurst in North Durham, but we all know the real Luke Akehurst was fired into the sun in a rocket 10 years ago.
Well, anyway, thank you to Ilford South investigative journalist from the Ilford Inquirer, Jimothy Baker, one of the top journalists in the country, for coming on our show again and giving us some updates from the core battleground seat of Ilford South, one of the bellwether seats of the UK electoral process, where Ilford South goes, the country follows. Thank you so much, Jimothy.
Oh, am I supposed to say something? Okay, yeah, fuck you, Shaq.
Okay,
my wife
bye.
still hates me.
Oh, FFF is on the fucking call. Hey, man.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah, did I see Jimothy? I saw you were talking to Jimothy.
Yeah, you just missed him.
Oh, seriously. Like, this fucking always happens, man.
What can I tell you, man? Well, that was our special guest for our Just Fucked Face. Thank you, FFF, for appearing on the podcast.
Yeah. That'll do.
All right, there you go. I think that's in the can. Thanks, man.